everyone, it's me, Cristy, Angelo, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to talk about podcasts on YouTube, a rapidly growing format that allows creators to share their message and connect with their audience in a new ways. Podcast creators get special video and playlist badges are eligible for official search cards and can be featured on youtube.com/podcast. In this video, I will walk you through how to create a podcast in YouTube Studio, how to analyze your podcast performance, and some best practices for podcasting on YouTube. If you want to know the 5 reasons why starting podcast in 2023 will be your best decision, please watch this video. I will put the link on my description. Okay guys, let's dive in. Creating podcasts in YouTube Studio. The first thing you need to do is create a podcast playlist in YouTube Studio. On YouTube, a podcast is a playlist and a podcast episodes are videos in that playlist. To create new podcast, go to YouTube Studio and click Create, then New Podcast. Enter the details for your podcast playlist, including a podcast title, description, visibility, and a square podcast thumbnail. Hit Create to save. Once you have a podcast playlist created, you can add new or existing videos to it. Adding videos to a podcast playlist. You can add new video to a podcast during the upload flow at the details step by selecting the podcast playlist you want to add it to. You can add existing videos to a podcast playlist by going to the Content tab, selecting one or multiple videos you want to add, and selecting Add to Playlist. Setting an existing playlist as a podcast playlist. To set an existing playlist as a podcast playlist, go to your YouTube Studio, then Content, then Playlist. Find the playlist you want to set as a podcast, then click the 3-dot menu and select Set as Podcast. Review the title, description, and visibility for your podcast and add a square podcast thumbnail in your YouTube Studio. You can see all podcasts by going to Content, then the Podcast tab. Here, you can edit your podcast details at any time, including default video order. Analyzing your podcast performance. In YouTube Studio Analytics, the Overview tab will give you a snapshot of your podcast performance. Here you can see your podcast views and watch time. For a deep dive into a specific podcast performance, click See Podcast Analytics. If you have multiple podcasts, click the title of the podcast you like to analyze. On the Overview tab, you find aggregated metrics such as views, watch time, and estimated revenue for all the videos in the podcast playlist in the selected time range, as well as your top performing episodes. Best practices for podcast creators. Now that you know how to create a podcast in YouTube Studio and analyze your podcast performance, let's talk about some best practices for podcast creators. First, create a public podcast playlist for each podcast on your channel. This playlist should only contain full-length episodes from all seasons of a show in the order they should be consumed. This helps fans of your podcast and all the episodes in one place. Next, use the same name of your podcast as your playlist title. Don't add extra words, not even the word podcast, unless it's part of your show name. This makes it easier for your audience to find you on YouTube. Also, avoid mixing clips, different podcasts, or videos from the other channels within a podcast playlist. Finally, add a comprehensive description to your podcast. This helps your new listeners discover your podcast from their searches. These podcast tips can help you increase your reach, engage your audience, and enable your podcast content be eligible for podcast features on YouTube. Thanks Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video helped you learn more about creating and analyzing podcasts on YouTube. By following these best practices, you can grow your audience and take advantage of the unique features available to podcast creators on YouTube. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on YouTube, best practices and tips. Thanks for watching again, and see you in my next video.